Budget and reforms in educational management. The Philippine education system has evolved over hundreds of years of colonial occupation, first by Spain and then by US. Through martial law and the People's Power Revolution that brought democracy to the sprawling archipelago, the education sector's development has mirrored the changes in the country's administration. Today, the focus is on expanding access and ensuring more Filipinos receive a decent basic education as a means of reducing poverty and improving national competitiveness. School reform on a budget. Where to invest first? A major mistake made by school reform groups is to table educational reform efforts because the expenditure does not fit in the school budget. If children are America's most precious commodity of the focal point of the nation's educational system, then the lack of funding is no excuse to forego reform efforts. If we can commit money to our K-12 students, how can we expect them to rise above their circumstances? The old business adage is that you have to spend money to make money, and that should be the mentality when looking at struggling schools or districts that need sometimes costly reform. By smartly investing the money, even just in few key areas, school will see a return on that reform investment in the way of more successful, higher achieving students. And really, school reform does not need to cost a fortune to make a difference. In truth, many school reform efforts are cost-effective and can be implemented by resourceful educators. When there is a lack of money, reform is contingent upon the faith and commitment level of the faculty and staff. Money should not be wasted on model programs and unsubstantiated trends. Reform groups will have to work diligently and efficiently to implement the chosen reform efforts properly and effectively. A budget is important to an educational institution in the following ways. First, budgeting ensures the actions are carried out according to budget plan. Through the use of budget as a standard, the school ensures that programs are implemented according to set plans and objectives. Importance of a budget to a school. A budget can be defined as an itemized listing of the amount of all estimated revenue or income which the school anticipates receiving, along with the listing of amount of all estimated costs and expenses that will be incurred during a given period of time. A school budget can be defined as a document or statement outlining a school's revenue or income projections against expenditure. A school budget can also be defined as a financial plan of funds that a school expects to receive and the expenditure it will take to achieve its educational objectives. The head teacher is charged with the prime duty of preparing a school budget. The budget is drawn based on the Board of Governors, School Management Committee, and Parent-Teachers Association resolutions on the school development and operations. A well-prepared budget should consist of three key components, namely revenue plan, expenditure framework, and educational strategy, which is a long-term plan. A budget is important to an educational institution in the following ways. First, budgeting ensures that actions are carried out according to a budget plan. Through the use of budget as a standard, the school ensures that programs are implemented according to set plans and objectives. The actual performance is measured against budgeted performance. Secondly, a budget facilitates proper administration of financial revenues and other school resources. A budget is the basis for accounting of funds spent to achieve educational objectives. The budget also inspires confidence in the parents, education officials, and the school community about the school leadership and general management. Fourthly, budgeting facilitates a systematic plan or evaluating the quality and quantity of services needed in a school. Next, a budget helps in the attainment of purposes. The budget states clearly the purposes for which the school was founded. Sixth, a budget confers authority to head teachers to source for funds and expend it on approved expenditures. Finally, it enables teachers to obtain fairly accurate estimates of receipts and expenditures. These estimates help in balancing the budget and thus prevent budgetary deficits. The principal of the school should be responsible for the preparation of the budget document. However, the head teachers need to consult the other relevant authorities and departments. The budget, therefore, should be a result of corporate efforts of all those concerned with the needs of their children. Budgeting is important aspects that have and should be used in every activity. Where should the money go? When school reform is needed and schools have limited resources, spending money on curriculum can be intimidating. But it is a vital place to put money because it makes a huge impact on student outcomes. The curriculum chosen will need to be good fit for both teachers and students. Math and reading should be the first concern because they are the building blocks for other subject areas, as well as the most frequent measure of future success. Success in these two areas bode well for success in other subjects at all grade levels. Teachers' professional development is a key factor for successful school reform as well. When analyzing reform budgets, it is important to set aside money to hire teachers with the ability to create and teach in-service professional development programs. The ability to train the staff and educators internally will save the school money and will give the teacher or expert a feeling or usefulness. For instance, a teacher with 30 years of experience and a demonstrated ability to obtain amazing results from her specific teaching strategies might create a professional development seminar to share her expertise. This saves the school an enormous amount of money and saves the administrator the trouble and cost of hiring a consultant. Another low-cost or no-cost option is to hire professors from neighboring colleges and universities to provide professional development services to your district as a form of community service or to fulfill requirements to obtain or maintain tenure. In the end, schools operating with limited funds to support reform efforts will need to be both resourceful and creative in order to effect positive change. Forward-thinking leaders, committed and imaginative teachers, and a supportive community can contribute to change that improves the educational experiences of our children. Education reform is the term for the goal of changing public education in terms of educational theory and practice. Where education reform once focused on inputs, it now focuses on outputs, such as a student achievement. May try to address the inequities including those pertaining to poverty, gender, and class. Evidence-based education guides reform where the scientific studies point the methods that are most effective. Long-term vision. The leaders of countries with high-performing education system share a palpable conviction about the centrality of education to their dreams for their society. To raise people from poverty, achieve greater equality, develop a well-functioning multicultural society, and certainly create a thriving economy and a growing number of good jobs. Each of these systems has a long-term vision for how education can achieve this, which is widely shared inside and outside the education system. Education reform is something that has been evolving for many years, and it is a way in which to make education better for everyone regardless of economic status, race, sex, or age. Reform of the education system has taken on many phases throughout the years and under different political administrations. The fact is that education is always progressing and one administration will add to its reform to better the current educational system for everyone. Sustained leadership. Major reforms are often triggered by an economic, social, or political crisis and may be led by a single strong leader. Such reform efforts can bring about significant improvement within a 3 to 5 year period, but substantial changes in performance or closing achievement gaps on a large scale require a longer time frame than most political cycles. Therefore, high leadership turnover is a fundamental barrier to sustaining change. Ambitious standards. Countries that excel set ambitious, universal, and clear standards for all their students, typically at the national or state, provincial level. Countries that have historically set standards at the local or state level are therefore increasingly coming together to create a common standards across all jurisdictions. In Australia, for example, states have come together for the first time to create a national curriculum. Commitment to equity. Leaders in every country proclaim their commitment to equity, but successful education systems focus on achieving equity in a strong and deliberate way. Our major performance on international assessment is due in part in the large percentage of students scoring at or below basic levels. High-performing systems use a variety of approaches to minimize the impact of social background on student achievement. These include system-wide policies like equitable funding, having common high expectations for all students, and ensuring high-quality teachers in every school. High-quality teachers and school leaders. Vision, leadership, high standards, and commitment to equity are crucial starting points, but unless they affect teaching and learning in the classroom, they won't bring about significant change. There is a broad agreement among high-performing and improving countries that no matter what reform strategy they are pursuing, the quality of an education system rests on the quality of its teachers. These systems adopt policies to attract, prepare, support, reward, retain, and advance high-quality teachers. Alignment and coherence. Lower performing systems have large implementation gaps between the policies enacted at the national, state, or even district level and what actually happens in classrooms. There are frequent inconsistencies between, for example, the stated policy goals of higher order skills and the lower level tests that are used to assess them, or between the goals of schools and the conflicting orientation of the higher education system that produces teachers. Intelligent accountability. All systems struggle with the balance between top-down managerial prescription and bottom-up professional judgment. However, other systems where performance has been weak or uneven have used more centralized mechanisms to promote more consistent performance. There is a lot of variation in the design of management and accountability system. Over-reliance on simple student outcomes tests for accountability is not effective in moving systems to high performance, but nor is uniform professional judgment. Effective use of resources. High educational expenditures don't necessarily lead to high performance. In fact, many high-performing countries have relatively modest expenditures. That said, resources do matter. Expenditure is an area where the more research is needed, but it appears that high-performing systems spend money differently. For example, they don't spend as much of their budget on buildings, sports, administrative positions, or separate special education functions. They also tend to make different trade-offs between class size and time for teachers to devote to professional development. Student motivation and engagement. Every country has students with varying degrees of motivation, but the intensity of focus and time is task of students in high-performing system is striking. High-performing systems motivate their students to study hard through both intrinsic and external incentives. In Asian systems, the intense belief the effort, not ability, is the prime determination of success, combined with the high value placed on education by families as a route to social mobility, plus the examination system, create powerful motivation. Global and future orientation, recognizing the increasingly interconnected and digital world into which we are moving. High-performing systems are going global. These systems are developing a global and future orientation among their teachers, school leaders, and students. They are modernizing curriculum to deal with the imperatives of the 21st century and forming international school partnerships to prepare students to function as workers and citizens in a globalized world and not just their own local communities. They also emphasized international benchmarking, constantly looking around the world for international best practices and using benchmarking as a tool for improving their system.